Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Center for Spiritual... What? Mike. Oh. Mike. Hello. Now you can hear me. Can you guys hear me? Yeah. Okay, good morning. Welcome to the Center for Spiritual Living, Pleasant Valley. This is a wonderful Sunday morning, and we have a great speaker today for you. So let's kick off the morning with the one and only, the inimitable Bill Rotella.
All right. Good morning, good morning. So I'm going to play a song that I wrote during COVID. I was kind of talking to myself with this tune right here, reminding myself that no matter what, right? You ever heard that phrase, no matter what, Ralph? You ever heard that before? Yeah. This is my No Matter What song. Give me a Sunday morning. Give me my 6-string guitar. Give me nothing to do. Leave me dreaming in my baby's arms that tomorrow's teardrops fall like rain. I got blue skies and brown eyes on my brain. Yeah, it's a beautiful day. I'm just counting the stars, pulling weeds from my yard, and I'm just saying, it's good to be me. And I've got nothing but time, COVID. And I got a heart that doesn't ache. I got love in the oven. It goes a little sweeter every day. I know it don't get a whole lot better than that. And I've got friends I can depend on, and that's a fact. Yeah, they got my back. I got nowhere to go. I got nowhere to be. And I'm just singing. Thank you, Marcia. Good to be me. There's a time, there's a season. There's a rhyme, there's a reason for everything. There really is no mystery. Everybody wants the same damn thing. There's people I love and people I know. Some people, they gotta go. I learned long ago to leave well enough alone. Yeah, let the little wheel roll. I've been playing my cards. I've been lucky so far. And I'm just saying, it's good to be Marcia. It's good to be me. Happy Sunday, folks.
All right. Thank you so much, Bill. That is getting the morning going with a lot of energy. And it is good to be me. And it's good to have you here with us this morning. I'm Pamela Bailey. I am actually the lead practitioner here. And I'm going to be reading the Flames of Faith and then sharing a thought and a prayer. So I'm glad to be me, and I'm glad to be here. Thank you so much. Okay, so we do this every week. We light the flames of faith. And this teaching is one where we believe there's one God and many paths. And the flames of faith actually delineate a lot of those paths. And we know that within each and every one of us is that divine spark, and that's what longs to be connected with the one. So if we can, Marcia, we perform this ceremony to promote the universal consciousness of life, which acknowledges that all people and all faiths, all sentient beings, come from that one great universal presence, which we call spirit. Fundamental to this truth is the unifying nature of all religious thought and experience, which we honor here today. We light the candle for the Tao, honoring the universal path of harmony and equilibrium, the natural way. We light the candle for the shamanic traditions, honoring the beliefs and practices of all indigenous peoples, the way of primal spirituality. We light the candle for Hinduism, honoring the path of knowledge, action, and devotion. We light the candle for Judaism, honoring the ethical path of living by sacred law. We light the candle for all forms of Buddhism, honoring the Four Noble Truths and the path of compassion. We light the candle for all forms of Christianity, honoring the Christ consciousness as the path of love. We light the candle for all forms of Islam, honoring the path of submission to the will of God as the highest calling. We light the candle for the universalistic religion of Baha'i, honoring the path of unity and peace. We light the candle for all forms of New Thought, honoring the metaphysical path of mental healing through the practice of universal spiritual principles, and that would be our center. It's for a form of New Thought. We light the candle for all those who are, as yet, unaware of the power and presence of Spirit in their lives, and for the space that we are holding for them at this center, and for all religions unnamed in this ceremony. As we light the healing candle, please put silently into the light the names of anyone you wish to have experienced the healing flame of God's eternal love. So let us turn within for a moment here. And as we bring to mind those people that we know or know of who do need the presence of that healing presence and light and love of the divine, and just let us hold them in consciousness, seeing that all is spirit, all is good, all is love, all is life unfolding in its perfection. And as we do so, remembering those who have passed on to their next experience and being present with those who are going through challenges, just knowing that right where I am, right where each and every person is, God is, and that power and that peace is always present. And for that, I am so grateful. Thank you, God. And so it is. And today I am also the practitioner of the day. And our wonderful speaker today is speaking on heroes, saints, and the meaning of life. Well, I can't wait to hear what she has to say. And we do every month in CSL have a monthly theme, and this one is the light within the shadows. As I was contemplating this, I'm thinking, okay, light within darkness, that's the entirety of life. And as I was looking at light and darkness, it's like, gosh, you know, my tendency is to split it into the light, the good, the positive, the safe, the creative, and then the dark, the negative, the fearful, the dangerous, the destructive. Well, maybe that splitting isn't quite all there is, and all of it together is life itself. But as I was looking at, well, what is that light? What is it that would, when I was a little kid in Sunday school, we had this song, This Little Light of Mine, I'm Gonna Let It Shine. And I'm sure everybody here knows that song. And we just, all these smiles, it's like, we love that song, This Little Light of Mine, I'm Gonna Let It Shine. And what does that light shine with? And it's, okay, what does that light shine with? Well, it shines with joy, with light, with love, with peace, with power. And it's very present in all of life. It's present in the giving and the receiving. And guess what? There's that light and that goodness and that presence of spirit in both the giving and the receiving. It feels good to give. It feels good when I know that I have said or done something that's contributed to someone else's happiness, well-being, or whatever, or just a good laugh. All of those things. And then what else? It's like, if I look at what is the light that I shine in the world, and what am I committed to? Well, I'm committed to bringing peace, to bringing acceptance and to bringing listening where I go and having an experience where each and every person is known as that divine being that they are. And this whole thing of, well, who is it that I want to be? And actually, a friend of mine gave me this really interesting compliment. She said, you know, I love it when you call. You don't call up to complain about everything. And I thought, yeah. And, you know, one of the lessons of life is we get what we focus on. So, gosh, guess what? What do I want to focus on? The things I don't like that I can't change? Or maybe just that I'm here with some other human being and we're in this divine moment. I think I'll pick that latter one. So I have a couple of quotes here because that's what we always do. We have some quote to take with you. So the first one is from Howard Thurman, and he says, "Bring out and shine your light. Express your own unique divinity. Our world needs it." And then there's, "I determine to live the outer life in the inner sanctuary." And that is where we live from, our inner sanctuary, and that is who we express out into the world. And then from Raymond Charles Barker, who was one of the greats in, excuse me, in religious science, and he wrote this wonderful book called The Power of Decision. He says, "You are the right person in the right place in the right time to create a right world for yourself. All the resources of the infinite are already yours." And then last but not least, our founder Ernest Holmes said, "God is all there is, and that includes all of it." So in taking these thoughts of, yes, all of life includes both the light and the dark. It includes that darkness where we grow and that light where we express. And as we have these thoughts of, what is my light? How can I add to the light, add to the generosity and creativity? So that is my quest today as I go out and do whatever I do. So let us just, again, relax for a moment. Take a deep breath. Be fully present in our chairs or wherever you are in Facebook land. And just knowing that, yes, as Ernest Holmes says, God is all there is. Everything in this manifest universe is an expression of that divine being. And what you call God doesn't matter. Source, Spirit, Allah, God. It is that one presence, that one power. And as I know that that is all that there is, yes, I am one with the divine. And as I open to and become conscious of that divine, I am in that flow. I am in that wonderful flow of life. And yes, there's light and dark. And I choose to open my mouth, to say something kind, to open my ears, to listen to one another deeply, with love and with acceptance. And as those things are just part of who I am in the world, I love life. I go out and I know that each and every person is a divine being. And each and every experience is some part of God expressing. And as I know this beautiful day where we come together, and today we were blessed with friends from afar who it's just absolutely delightful to see and embrace once again. Let us just know that life has all these wonderful things, all these wonderful experiences and people, even the ones that we label as, not so much. All of those, that is all part of life, part of God, and part of this wonderful experience of living. And so today, as we hear about heroes and saints and all of that, let us just have open ears, open minds, open hearts, and fill the day with love. And as I conclude this, I just say, thank you, God, thank you, God, thank you, God. And together we say, and so it is. Yes, and I believe, let me check for a moment, sorry. I believe I get to introduce the wonderful, the handsome, the talented Bill Rotella. Let's hear it.
very nice talk. Thank you. All right, when I saw that the talk was going to be about heroes and saints, the first thing I thought about was they come in all shapes and sizes, right? So for me, there are some songwriters that are saints because the message is amazing, right? When I find myself in times of trouble, Mother Mary comes to me, speaking words of wisdom, let it be. And in my hour of darkness, she is standing right in front of me, speaking words of wisdom, let it be. Let it be, let it be. Let it be, let it be. Whisper words of wisdom, let it be. And when the broken-hearted people living in the world agree, there will be an answer, let it be. And though they may be parted, there's still a chance that they will see. There will be an answer, let it be. Let it be, let it be. Let it be, let it be. Whisper words of wisdom, let it be. And when the night grows cloudy, there's still a light that shines on me. Shine on till tomorrow, let it be. I wake up to the sound of music, Mother Mary comes to me, speaking words of wisdom, let it be. Let it be, let it be. Let it be, let it be. Whisper words of wisdom, let it be. Thank you. Thank you.
And now we have, if you will, our main event. Paulette Jones will be speaking to us. So come on up, Paulette.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Oh, there's people here. Hi, thank you for being here today. Today we are going to have more fun than we've ever had with all our clothes on. Today we're going to be talking about heroes, saints, and the meaning of life. The meaning of life seems to be a recurring theme in some of the talks that I did. Last time we were here, I talked about the Bhagavad Gita and the idea of how life is revealed to us through the discussions between Arjuna and the Lord Krishna. Well, today I'm going to take a little different look at it. I'm going to take a look at it from the perspective of these cultural icons that we have witnessed that have really shaped society throughout the history of Western culture and as a reflection of the society and the times that they appeared. The idea about the hero and the saint is going to be wonderful. We're going to take this metaphorical journey, and we're going to start with the idea of, there it is. Surprise, surprise. So first of all, we're talking about the meaning of life, and so we're going to skip over the existentialism, maybe flip the bird or something and say, no, we're going to assume that life does indeed have meaning, because the existentialist would probably tell you it doesn't really have any meaning. But we're going to say, nope, we're going to assume that it does, but we're not going to leave them out of the discussion. We're going to weave them into this mosaic of ideas that we're going to be talking about over the course of the next 30 minutes, but it'll seem like 6 days. This is actually This is actually an excerpt from a much larger presentation that was much more boring. So you're getting the good version today, and it'll be fun, trust me. So first of all, we're going to talk about life. Does life have meaning? Well, of course it does. And we're going to discuss the idea about meaning. But if we talk about life, we have no choice in this context of this discussion to talk about death as well, the inseparable companion, because life in effect is either an actual or a symbolic struggle between forces that are indifferent to human struggle, to human sufferings and human needs. And life and death hangs in the balance. So we're going to take a look at that and what it really means. But what we're really doing is taking a look at these cultural icons. And we're going to start with one that we come to know as the hero. The hero, the heroic figure. The hero is configured, is driven by a sense of honor. When we talked about the Bhagavad Gita, we talked about a sense of honor being svadharma, one's sacred duty to life. Well, that's the idea that drives the heroic figure. And the heroic figure as life is characterized and is circumscribed by this idea of a struggle against impersonal forces that are totally indifferent to the needs of humanity. That's a phrase or some variation of that I'm going to use quite a bit as we go through this presentation today. We view this heroic figure with admiration and respect, and from this heroic figure, we're asking for inspiration. That's really what we're looking for when we talk about the hero. Inspiration, and we'll go back to the genealogy of how this entered into human consciousness, and we'll find that it entered into human consciousness during the age of the Greeks. Therefore, some of the slides you see you may have seen before in other contexts, because it's really hard to imagine what Western civilization would have been like without the emergence of the Greek idea of life. And let's see if we can get this one in here. The saint. The other metaphor that we're talking about is the saintly metaphor, and the saint is driven by love. And the saint's life is described in terms of a covenant between man and God, a covenant that is an exchange of promises in the hope of achieving total trust. And that characterizes the life of the saint. And we view the saint with gratitude and humility, and from the saint we seek help. The saint metaphor. And as you're going to see, we're going to talk about these different metaphors as we go through life, and you're going to recognize them in your own individual life, how we do seek help from saintly figures, how we do seek inspiration from heroic figures. And we're going to go back to the genealogy. This is where we're going to begin. Well, I guess we already did begin, right? So that horse is already out of the barn. We're going to go to the second figure, and anybody recognize that? That is the figure of Oedipus Rex. Well, this is the story of you could love your mommy to death, right? So, well, that's an oversimplification of that story. But nonetheless, I don't have time to go into it. But I want to talk about the history of Greece for just a second. We break the history of Greece into these two areas. We talk about the Homeric period, which was like from 1600 BC to about 700 BC. And during this time, we witnessed the creation of wonderful, beautiful artistic works like the Iliad and the Odyssey, right? These were very sacred to the Greeks, and at this time we witnessed something known as the agon, which is the contest. The contest that led to things like the Olympic Games, the Pantheistic Games, that sort of thing. It was a contest, it was a symbolic struggle between life and what? Death, the inseparable. And even though it wasn't about killing, it was to the gods, it was put on for the entertainment of the gods, and it was this sacred agon, this struggle that we go through. And so the worldview of the Greeks was being formed during this period, but something changed a bit. Around 700 BC, we see the growth of the city-states. So we're starting out with the idea of the hero. We think of Achilles, for instance, one of the ancient Greek heroes. But we're developing something different. With the emergence of the city-state, we are seeing a change. During the Homeric period, there was a great deal of religious ceremonies. All of these games were put on for the enjoyment, the entertainment of the gods, and the games would always be characterized also by some sacrifices, slaughtering a lamb, whatever it is, or slaughtering a goat was one of the favorite targets. That's where we get the idea about scapegoat. We put our sins upon the goat and sacrifice it to the god. So you can see how Greek literature has just woven itself into our fabric today. And so we look at the idea of the tragic hero, which changed with the idea of the city-states. And then we move to something called the tragedy, and what that translates to is goat song. So the agon is changed from these physical contests of strength and agility and all that sort of stuff to a spectacle, a play written by someone like Sophocles, for instance, who's the author of Oedipus Rex, or Aeschylus, these famous authors that would write these things, and they were put upon for the pleasure of the gods. And tragedy means goat song, so they've gone from slaughtering goats to the idea of putting on these plays for the enjoyment of the gods. It's really a sacred, very religious experience for the Greeks to go see these plays. It was absolutely extraordinary, but it changed everything. And during this period, and during the Homeric period, we got the idea of the Greek worldview. And there are three components of the Greek worldview that you should know, because there'll be a test at the end of this. And anyone who fails has to stay and clean the place. So anyway, the first is anarchy, the idea of anarchy. Anarchy is the idea about this struggle, this struggle with impersonal forces that are indifferent to our lives. Consider any struggles that you think of. Whatever it is you're struggling, it doesn't care about your well-being, right? So that is this idea about the heroic struggle. The other idea is Moira, which is individual fate or destiny, and how one conducts oneself in life determines what their Moira is, what their destiny or their individual fate is. And the last is arete. Arete is amazing. It's the idea about heroic virtue. It's about an idea about standing up and doing something that can be done by none other. We can think, I'm sure in your mind pops into ideas, people that you've heard of or read about or known that have done that, have stood up and done something that could be done by no other. And so the living of a perfect life is living in this heroic virtue. Now, so we've got this idea about the hero emerging. It changed from this idea about the games and everything. Marcia's waving hands. And is everything okay back there? Microphone. She tells me to talk into the microphone. Sorry, I'll talk into the microphone some more. Anyway, in the odd event that anybody's listening. So we're going to go to the next slide, and we're going to see a change in this idea about the Greek hero, and we're going to talk about the citizen hero. Anybody recognize this picture? This is a picture of Socrates. Socrates, in 399, he died because he drank some hemlock, and that's what happens when you drink hemlock, you die. But what he did so in response to the Peloponnesian Wars, believe it or not. They went on for 27 years. It was this war between Athens and Sparta. And in 405, the Spartan army defeated the Athenian army. They came in, they took over, they occupied Athens, and they destroyed democracy. They just took all of that away, and they installed an oligarchy, which was a very powerful Spartan figure. So Socrates, who was a veteran of the Peloponnesian Wars, he fought in those wars, and he was a gadfly. So he would go out and talk to people on street corners and everything, and he became kind of a bug or a stone in their shoe. He would criticize this oligarchy and say, look what's happened. Our democracy has been destroyed by these by these Spartan pigs. Well, maybe he didn't call them pigs, but that's what I might have called them. In any event, and so they had to get rid of him. You can imagine they have this meeting. We got to shut this guy up. What are we going to do? Well, let's accuse him of something. What can we accuse him of? We can accuse him of corrupting the youth of Sparta. of Athens, correcting the youth of Athens was already really corrupt. So anyway, but he said, we got to have something, so we're going to bring him forward and we're going to put him on trial. So they put him on trial, but they didn't want to kill him. They wanted to get rid of him, to shut his mouth. So they offered him a deal. They said, look, if you issue an apology and if you stop these talks, we'll let you live. You can go back and, corrupt young boys if that's what you're into, or whatever it is, so you can go on about your life. And he said, no, what am I going to do? Are you guys insane? I can't do that, because my whole life I've talked about principles and values and that sort of thing. Am I to walk away from all of that? No, I'm not going to do it. So they said, okay, you're sentenced to death, and we're going to put you in this jail cell. But again, we're not going to lock the door. We're not going to have any guards. You can have anybody you want coming in, but eventually you're going to have to take hemlock. Well, his buddies come over, and they start singing, we got to get out of this place. They tried to get him to come and leave and hide with them and say, we will protect you, we'll hide you and everything. He says, I can't do that. I can't do that. And he starts telling the story about the Oracle at Delphi. If you know anything about that, there were fissures at the Delphi, and they were leaking methane gas. These people were losing their minds, and so when they were asked a question, it was very ambiguous and very mysterious. Now that angered a lot of people, but they said, well, they're meth heads, so they're installing all of this stuff. And they said, what are we going to do? So this idea about he says, well, let us take you out of here. We'll hide you and everything. He said, I can't do that. And so instead, I'm going to, I have to examine my life. This idea about the weird answers that he got from the Oracle of Delphi, he said, that's fine. We have to live in the mystery. And here's a key point. We have to live in the mystery by asking questions. We continually ask ourselves questions like, what is the meaning of life? We continue to do that. And if we do that, living in the question in and of itself brings meaning to life. So I'm going to continue to ask questions, to continue to examine my life, because an unexamined life is not worth living. And he takes the hemlock and he dies. And all his friends are saying, he took hemlock, he died. Duh, that's what happens. So he died, right? So Plato writes about this in a book known as the Apology. So let's talk about Plato's take on this, because Aristotle wrote nothing. We don't have a cancel check from him. We've got nothing. He never wrote anything, but Plato wrote a great deal. So Plato talks about this idea of the merging of the citizen hero. Here we have Socrates, and he wrote a book called The Apology. And in the Apology, he asked the reader to be a judge and jury and to judge whether Socrates is innocent or perhaps Socrates is guilty. So he cast the reader in this very particular role, and he iterates this thing about living life, living in the question, how important that is to accept responsibility for living in the question and for asking the questions that lead to a meaningful life. If we think that we know everything, out of this book, Apology, Socrates said, all I know is that I know nothing. That's a very famous idea, very famous quote. Well, this is where it came from, the Apology. But Plato wrote a lot of other stuff, and one of them was the Republic, and it has meaning in life. So I'm first going to tell you the story about the allegory of the cave. I've used this slide in some other presentations to demonstrate a different point. Today I'm using it to demonstrate the idea of the meaning of life. So we have this idea, this metaphor. What he's really writing about is the philosopher king. The philosopher king as embodied by Socrates. And it's really a continuation of the Apology. So we have this idea about a cave. And it may be difficult to see here because of the distortion, but we've got these people who are chained to a wall. And there's in a cave. And they're looking at this wall ahead of them. And what is happening is behind them, they built this big bonfire, and there's all these people with these puppet-looking things and all these weird shapes and moving them around, and they're creating these reflections, these shadows on the wall. And these people are watching this thinking, that's life, because that's all I've ever experienced, so that's what life must be like. Well, a few of them somehow break their bonds. They work their way up to the top. They get out, and they see the green grass and the beautiful blue sky and the white puffy clouds and all of this wonderful stuff. And they go back to the other people and they say, hey, this is not reality, what you're living. This is not reality. Up there, if you can get away, you'd see that the world is really about blue skies and green grass and all that. And they accused him of being blinded by the light. So that's another idea that has come into pop culture. They even wrote a song about it, blinded by the light. Anyway, somebody who could sing could give you a better version of that. That ain't me. But in any event, we have this idea about the allegory of the cave. So what is this all about? The Republic talks about the philosopher king and how you don't want to have a bunch of dummies running the government, right? That you need important, intelligent people who are able to think for themselves and are able to ascertain their own meaning in life. So we have this idea about the question, is virtue and justice its own reward? Remember about in the Apology, we talked about the idea of the importance of living in life. Now, so the Republic, to some extent, tackles this question about what does that mean? What does it mean to live in the question, to ask questions about your life in the search for answers and in the search for meaning? And they asked one of the most profound questions that has ever been asked in human literature, and it's this idea is we take responsibility for asking meaningful questions, and one of those meaningful questions is justice its own reward? Is justice its own reward? That's a very good question. Is justice its own reward? Is living the noble life, the heroic life, its own reward? We talked about arete, the idea about this, doing what none other can do to become this heroic figure. So it explores that, and it talks about what it means to take responsibility for asking those kind of questions. And we gain knowledge, but there were two different perspectives on it. Aristotle, for instance, who was a student of Plato, and actually he was a teacher of Alexander the Great. In case you didn't know, they used to call him Alexander the Mediocre until he ran into Aristotle. So he became much greater. So, and anyway, I made that up, probably. Not sure. Maybe I did. So, anyway, we're going to switch now from the idea of the heroic figure, this heroic thing that has shaped culture and influenced development culture and is also a reflection of the culture throughout history. And we're going to move to the saintly story. This is the story of Abraham, and I'm going to give you a little different version. So, anyway, you'll love it. So we talk about Abraham the saint. This is where the roots of this idea about a saint come from. And so we have this, remember we talked about the bonds, the sacred covenant, that the life of a hero, of the saintly figure, is configured by this bond, this covenant between man and God. Some of you may have been in the class that I've taught or the lectures I've given on a covenant, my own personal covenant with God. I'm healthy, successful, wealthy, et cetera, et cetera. So we have the bonds of this sacred covenant. So Abraham was called by God. God says, hey, Abraham, come over here. Stop playing with your ram Fluffy and come over here. Maybe Fluffy wasn't in the Bible. I'm not sure. I think it might have been. Anyway, so he says, we want to enter into a covenant. And the covenant was this exchange. And you're going to get stuff, but you're not going to get it right away. But this is our bond between the two of us, and this way we'll build ultimate trust. So he says, we have this covenant, and there's three elements of the story. First of all, he was chosen by God. Abraham was chosen by God. That's how we get the idea of the Jewish people as the chosen people, right? So it was chosen. The next was this bonds of this configuration of this bond between man and God. And the third is some sort of test or sacrifice. So you can imagine Abraham sitting home talking to his son Isaac. Isaac, are you in the bathroom again? You better not be on the internet. I'm going to kill you. And so God heard that. He said, okay, go ahead and kill him. He said, no, I don't want to kill my son. He said, well, you got to. And he said, well, why don't you kill your son? He said, wait a couple thousand years, and we'll get to that. So maybe he didn't say that. Maybe I got that story a little bit wrong. But I don't know for sure. So anyway, so we've got Abraham here. And Abraham is the archetypal of the saint, the figure of the saint, this saintly idea of entering in this covenant with God. And so we have the idea, let me see. Oh, yeah, we talked about the three elements of that. So you can imagine, here we've got Isaac is going to be slaughtered because, God said, hey, you got to do this. And so he's taking him over there, and Fluffy's following behind, Fluffy the ram. So the angel stops him at the last minute and says, hey, listen, stop. You can't do this. Don't kill your son. Instead, sacrifice a ram. So Fluffy's over there like, what? Say what? What? No, he said spam. He said, let's get some spam and give it to God because, who doesn't like spam? So maybe that was, I know, this story I heard. So maybe I got that wrong. But anyway, we have the three elements, major elements of the saintly story. And within that, we have the idea that the moral is, who's in control here? God. God is in control. And if we talk at the saintly metaphor, that God is the source of meaning in life through the saintly metaphor. But, that changed, right? So this sets up the idea of the saintly metaphor. And without doubt, without any doubt, the idea of the saintly metaphor was a dominant figure up until around, the European Enlightenment. And we'll talk about that, how the church has formed Western structures, right? Western civilization. Church was a very predominant force in that. So we have this change that occurred. Finally, we have the idea about Christ emerging from the tomb, the idea about love. Now, this configures a new covenant. Suddenly, the covenant is changed, and it goes from, you see, the ancient Jews, when they were in their temples, not during the rabbinical period, but when they were in their temples, they did engage in all these sacrifices of all these animals and stuff. But when Christianity comes, they said, we don't need to do that anymore because the Lamb of God was slaughtered on our behalf, and so blood was already shed, so we no longer need this blood covenant, and we are changing it to the idea about love that comes in the form of forgiveness for sins. Now, the early Christian church really needed the resurrection as part of the whole idea of the church, a whole idea about resurrection. They looked at Jesus as the firstborn of the dead, and looking at it as starting a whole new idea about God's kingdom on earth, which really came about through this is a covenant that transcends death, right? We talk about, now the Christians talk about eternal life, if you believe in Jesus and the idea about eternal life. And this idea about the Sermon on the Mount, there's two of them. There's two different Gospels that have it, Matthew and Luke. The most famous of it is Matthew, and this is the, blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth, etc. It was a declaration of God's kingdom on this earth. And the saintly metaphor, well, this was like the superstar of saintly metaphors, right? The big one. And it transformed society for the next, 1,500 years, the saintly metaphor in the form of the church. The church was very, very powerful. And it's hard to imagine the church not existing because without it, Western civilization certainly wouldn't have developed in the way that it has. So we're going to move on. Well, we've got this saintly metaphor. And we entered the European... Are we okay on time? We entered the... Yeah, okay. She says keep going. I haven't got the shut up sign yet. So it's coming soon, I'm pretty sure. So I better hurry. So we talk about the European Enlightenment, right? And the European Enlightenment was from the 15th century through the 18th century. And a lot of stuff happened during that point. It is the door to cultural dynamic changes. We see a major change during this point. We can consider some of the figures, right? Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci, Galileo, Newton, Bacon, those kind of figures that changed the world, created things like empiricism, led to the Industrial Revolution, et cetera, all that kind of fun stuff. So something happened. The door was knocked down by Martin Luther on October 31st of 1517. We're going to see a merging of the hero. Remember, the hero is characterized by this struggle against impersonal forces that are indifferent, right? So we're going to see a change. That's who Martin Luther was. He was a religious figure, the saintly metaphor that converted to the heroic metaphor by opposing certain ideas about the church, and he just knocked the door off, by nailing his 95 Theses to the wall, the cathedral wall at Wittenberg. And one of the major things he thought about was the idea about sola scriptorum. The doctrine of sola scriptorum. That was the biggest pain in the butt to the church. They could have stood a lot, but not that one, because basically what he did, he read some commentary by a guy named Erasmus, who had gone back and translated the Bible from the original Greek. And in it, he said that, look, wow, time out, guys, listen to this. St. Paul, who is, one of the major founding fathers of the Christian church, St. Paul said that man achieves salvation only by faith, that you don't need all these acts. And here the Christians were out selling indulgences, telling you couldn't eat meat on Friday, you had to go to church, all of these rules and regulations. And Martin Luther comes along and said, you don't need any of that. You don't need the church to be a go-between between you and God, and that you can have a personal relationship with God. Well, that changed everything, right? That changed about a whole bunch of stuff going on, because now you as an individual can have that personal relationship with God. You don't need to worry about not eating meat on Friday and doing that sort of stuff, because that's man-made stuff. It has nothing to do with your love or your devotion to God, but it certainly had something to do with supporting the structures of the church. So this ended for all time the hope of Christian unity, right? Just shattered that. Christian unity had already been shattered way before that when it split into the East and the West, but now it was sure that it was going to be shattered even further. So we're going to move ahead, because now the whole thing has changed from the saintly virtue to the heroic figure of Martin Luther standing up against the powers of the Inquisition, who wanted to tear him to shreds, but luckily he had some very powerful friends, and they hid him, they took him under his wing, and a lot of nobles and kings began to accept that idea. Consider King Henry VIII. He did it for different reasons, but it was enabled by Martin Luther. So we come into the idea about existentialism. Remember, we gave them the finger as we passed. We gave them some disapproval when we started this talk here, and we weren't very approving. So here's some reasons why. We have the idea about Kierkegaard. Kierkegaard was one of the early existentialists and lived in the 19th century. In 1843, he wrote a book called Fear and Trembling, and it was a retelling of the Abraham story. It wasn't as good as my retelling of the Abraham story, but it was a different retelling of the Abraham story. And it was really wonderful, except he just really poked a lot of ridicule at the idea of Abraham and said, Abraham is nuts. Abraham, he talked about Western culture that was built upon this idea of the saintly metaphor, that was built upon Christianity. And that it's absurd. The whole thing is absurd. It is promulgated by people who are self-serving, phony, pious people who has a religion that is devoid of love and is devoid of compassion and all of those sort of things. That it's a facade. Furthermore, he looked at the story of Abraham, and he says, Abraham is absurd. This is the whole idea about this idea about existentialism, is that life is absurd. And so he says the whole idea, and consider if someone told you that you had to murder your children, you had to murder one of your sons. Well, that alone is absurd, so the whole thing is absurd, and is completely lack of meaning. It has no meaning. And that's followed by this guy named Nietzsche, who descended into madness, but as he did so, he declared that God is dead, and he predicted the coming crash of Western civilization. So that's Kierkegaard and Nietzsche. If we had more time, we'd talk about them, but who cares? So then we move on to the idea about existentialism, which is taking responsibility. We move into the area of the 20th century existentialism, and that's, we can think of Camus or Sartre. Sartre was caught in France during the Nazi occupation of France, and he saw no meaning in life. And he said, the only way we can really achieve meaning, because I'm an existentialist and I don't believe that there is any meaning, but if there were meaning, one can do that by taking responsibility for living in the question and for asking questions and for criticizing and taking action that can be done by no other. Does that sound familiar? The idea about taking action, heroic action, that can be done by no other and yet can greatly benefit society. So he kind of went into hiding and he wrote about the Nazi atrocities, and his works were smuggled out of Germany during this period. I'm sorry, smuggled out of France, because France was occupied by Germany at the time. So you can see how this idea about there's a merging of the idea about the hero and the saint, and trying to search for meaning in a meaningless world. That's what existentialism was all about. It was about the freedom to choose in the area, even in the face of totalitarianism. A lot of stuff was, limited. They couldn't do a lot, but what they could do was continue to think and to write about the atrocities that were being committed. And therefore, we learn life. I'm going to talk very briefly. The meaning is derived from action and commitment. But I do want to talk very quickly, and I'll do this real quickly. It's about something called Man's Search for Meaning, a book by a guy named Viktor Frankl. I see a lot of heads going up in that. You either bobbleheads or, yes, you agree, one or the other. I'm not sure. Anyway, so we get back to this idea about man's search for meaning. He was a Jew. He was a psychiatrist, and for his sins of being a Jew, he was, thrown in the concentration camp, and he looked around and he searched for meaning. He said, people are searching for meaning. The people that are thriving, the people that are going to survive, have one perspective on life, and the people who don't can't find meaning. For him, he said, I'll have meaning because I want to see my family again. That gives me meaning. But the more meaningful thing is I want to observe what's going on. I want to write about it so that I can tell the rest of the world, and therefore this gives my life meaning. And he created something called logotherapy, which was integrated into psychiatry or psychology, and it was this idea about man's search for meaning, how we go about our daily life searching for meaning in the face of these competing metaphorical icons, the hero and the saint. And so we're nearly down to the end of it. I promise it's almost over. So we're going to talk first about the hero and the saint, remember? So this is all summary. There's so many bullets on this. By the end, it's going to look like an art chart. So I'm going to ask you to put one hand over one eye. See if you can still read it. Yeah. Anyway, don't be so quick to draw there, Sparky. So anyway, so we got the idea about the hero and the saint, and how these iconic figures have not only reflected society throughout history, but have contributed to the formation of that, has been a dominant force in the formation of society. And we can see it today. If we see this struggle between impersonal forces, we know that's a heroic venture, and it could be done by something very, I think of Mahatma Gandhi, perfect merging of the hero and the saint. He struggled against these impersonal forces of British occupation, and yet he was a very saintly figure and kept contact with the idea about a covenant with the world and with God. Good example there, I think, of the merging of the two. And we talk about our individualized capacity to create our own covenant with God. I have done that. I've created my own covenant with God. And believe me, I'm not the most saintly person in the world. Far from it. More on the demon side a little bit, I guess. But nonetheless, I have this covenant with God. It's an individual covenant, and I can go about the heroic struggle against impersonal forces, and yet still maintain this covenant with God. So we see emerging in your own life. You have the total ability to do that. I'm sure many of you have already done that. So then we come to the idea about merging the hero, the saint with the hero. Oh, this is an old slide. There isn't as many as I thought. So anyway, we talked about merging the hero. I actually had about 84 different bullets that I was going to talk about on the modified slide, but this is an earlier version when I still had remnants of my mind that were still alive. So we are human and godlike. You know, you got to accept your godness. William Shakespeare thought that you were God. In the play Hamlet, he had that discussion with Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. He said, "What a piece of work is man! How noble in reason! How infinite in faculty, in form and moving! How express and admirable in action! How like an angel in apprehension! How like a god!" William Shakespeare thought that you guys were gods, and I totally agree. So go out and be your God self. You have the individual choice to give meaning to yourself. And for me, the meaning in life right about now is to shut up. And thank you so much. Thank you so much for putting up with me for the period of time. I love you all. Thank you for putting up with that. Here we go.
That was fun.
Can we have one other round of applause for that? That was wonderful. Now, I only have 20 slides for our... I'm kidding. When we do this offertory, this is our way to express our divinity. God, money is God in action, and this is where we express our appreciation for this wonderful center. And if you would read this with me, please, together. Divine love consecrates my gift. It goes forth to heal, to prosper, and to bless. It is evidence of my conviction that God is the source and substance of my supply. I joyously contribute to the vision of my spiritual center, knowing that it returns to me multiplied abundantly, and so it is. Wonderful. And the ushers, this is a little lopsided over here. I'm glad you're all here, and we're happy that you're here. Very grateful, and very grateful for everyone who is in watching us on Facebook Live. Very, very good. And so now it's my pleasure to introduce, actually, let's have another prosperity prayer, shall we? Let's do that. Let's just double duty. So let's close our eyes, please, and open our hearts and our minds and our receptivity to our every good. And know along with me that there is one power, one presence, one way of life. This is all God, forever full, forever complete, forever expressing itself divinely. And since I am God's means to express itself, then I express the richness, the fullness, the absolute abundance that I already am. Prosperity is what I am. And prosperity is what I reveal in all that I think, say, and do. I give abundantly to this center, and to this center, this source of my spiritual life. I prosper, this center prospers, and the world is blessed. And together we say, and so it is. And so, and here comes Rev Pam running up to the podium.
I'm winding up. First of all, I just want to honor that Peter and Mary Jane, Lavender Hair Shea, and I always love it. You say it sounds like an exotic drink. Are here, yes, are here with us, and we are so honored that you came from all the way from Iowa just to come to today. And thank Paula. Oh my God, Paula, hilarious, brilliant as always. Thank you. And then most of all, we want to honor Bill Rotella before he comes up. He will not be with us on his birthday. So together, can you want to come up and at least enjoy the love? Come up, please, because you're ending it with us too here with music. And together, let us honor you.
Happy birthday to me.
Great.
Happy birthday to
you. Happy birthday, dear Bill.
And my twin brother.
And birthday to
Thank you.
you.
Thank you, thank you.
We love you. That is it. We love you. And now what happened? And now Buzzy with announcements. Yay!
Well, hello everyone, and welcome once again to our center, both of all of you that are here live and everyone that's online. As we start this month of May, we just had a wonderful lesson from our lovely Paulette Jones. I'm Buzz Noe, and here are the announcements for this week. So we're starting off with next Saturday, May 13th. It'll be a book signing here in Camarillo. It'll feature one of our members, Rory Kaddish Lamboy, who has written the great children's book entitled Prison of Doom. This will take place from 1 to 2 p.m. at the Bookworm. It's located over 93 East Daly Drive in the Las Posas Shopping Center. So if you wish to attend that book signing, please RSVP. The phone number is 805-660-5437. It's up there on the slide as well, and that'll be coming up next Saturday. All right. And now moving on, the Center's Women's Group, which normally would gather on the second Sunday of the month, but since next Sunday is Mother's Day, the women will be celebrating that they are mothers. So the actual women's group won't be gathering here next Sunday, but it will be gathering on June 11th, which is the second Sunday in June, right after the Sunday lesson. So please plan to attend that in June. And next Sunday's musical performer will be our beloved Alberto Del Pino. And as I've always said a few times before, he'll probably play us a C note. So, and as we've already mentioned, next Sunday is Mother's Day, and our speaker for the Sunday lesson will be here at 10:30. It'll be our beloved Reverend Dr. Sue Rubin. She'll be here, and her title for the next Sunday's talk is The Mother Load. And as always, it'll be here live and also on Facebook Live starting at 10:30 next Sunday. So plan to come in and be here for that or be online for it. And please don't forget that our bookstore is open once again, and right after the lesson. And once again, Ralph Brennan will be there to host. So after service, see Ralph and pick up a good read for you right there in the bookstore. So that'll all be happening right after the lesson. And as always, we want to thank everyone who has donated to our center. Today, I also remind you that if you're online, you can donate online through the center's website and also through PayPal and Zelle. And the center certainly appreciates all of your loving donations, and we thank you for anything that you can give to the center. So thank you for that. And we're moving on to another reminder to be sure to regularly check in to our center's website, cslpleasantvalley.org, and you can review the calendar there, learn about upcoming events. You can also find us on Facebook and on Instagram to learn about what's happening here at the center. So before I move on to the end, there is one more announcement that we didn't have on here, but I'm going to have my good wife Lynn come up and tell you about it, the improv class, which is coming up in June. So here she is to tell you more about it.
Hi, everybody. Where is Jerry? Jerry, come on up here. Jerry and I have partnered up. Our partnership is called Plays the Thing, and we're going to start teaching improv right here in this space, and I'm so excited. I just saw her perform some improv a couple of weeks ago, and she was very, very funny. So there will be a lot of laughs, a lot of play, and also relaxation to release tension. Is that what you said?
Oh, stress buster. If you have a stressful job, this is for you. And it also helps with public speaking or just just getting along with others and honoring their thoughts and words.
Playing well with others.
Yeah.
What a concept. And brain health. So it starts, the first one is Saturday, June 3rd. And then on Thursday night, there's a Thursday. Thursday is an intermediate class, and Saturday is all about the play and all about releasing and letting it all hang out. So we hope you will all join. Registration starts now, so let us know. Okay, thanks.
Will you send us info so we can get it on the website?
It should be on the website. It'll be soon on the website.
Yeah, but I'm the one that puts it up there.
Oh, you're the one that puts it up. Okay, we'll do that.
We'll get some information on the website about it. And as they've mentioned, improvisation helps with brain health, and that helps your overall health. So it's a great way to attend. And I see Marcia saying I need to move on. So I want to say that's it for the announcements. Thanks again for all of you being here live and online. And blessings to all of you to continue to enjoy this first Sunday of May. And now coming back, I thought it was you coming up, but okay. All right, and now here's one of our most wonderful fellows, Mr. Bill Rotella.
I know that's bad. I'm working on it. Marcia, you got the lyrics up there for the crowd?
For the crowd.
Here we go. Everyone get up. We got to stand up on this. Here we go. A little togetherness here. Follow Marcia. Keep going, Marcia. Raise up your hands, put a smile on your face. I'm talking to everyone in the human race. We're proud and strong, so stand up tall. Let's all get together, bring peace to the world. Let's all get together, bring peace to the world. Let's all get together, bring peace to the world. Every man and girl, boy and girl, let's all get together, bring peace to the world. Train of love, beginning right here. So jump onto it and have no fear. It's yours, it's mine. We got the call. Let's all get together, bring peace to the world. Let's all get together, bring peace to the world. Let's all get together, bring peace to the world. Every man and woman, boy and girl, let's all get together, bring peace to the world. Shelter the homeless, open the door, feed the hungry, give to the poor, offer your heart, don't think small. Let's all get together, bring peace to the world. Let's all get together, bring peace to the world. Let's all get together, bring peace to the world. Every man and woman, boy and girl, let's all get together, bring peace to the world. All get together, bring peace to the world. Let's all get together, bring peace to the world. Every man and woman, boy and girl, let's all get together, bring peace to the world. Happy Sunday, folks.
Bye, everybody. Have a wonderful week. We'll see you next week. And Dr. Sue. Oh, someone's waving to me.
Oh, I was just saying hi.
Oh. See you next week.
Hey, everybody, have a great Sunday.